What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It's a Monday. It's Tamper Day. And the Patriots have done plenty of tampering. Loading up on defense. Phil, you got to fish where the fish are. You don't have a left tackle. You don't have a wide receiver. But you have stocked up a defense that desperately, is that the right adverb? Needed it?
Oh, no question. They needed help. They needed help everywhere. And I think this is, it's not a benefit because your football team was not good coming into today. But they did have the possibility in front of them coming into tampering day number one to at least be flexible in their spending, right? And to use that word that Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf have already used this offseason, to pivot. Okay, you don't get the left tackle that you're hoping for because Ronnie Stanley re-signs in Baltimore. Maybe you move on, you sign a corner, and you give him a little bit more money than maybe you were planning to, okay? You don't get that receiver that you really wanted in Chris Godwin because, man, he was going to be such a great fit on the field and off. Well, now you have a little bit more money to play with to get your game record defensively in Milton Williams and give him a record contract for your franchise. So I think those were the pivots. When I heard that word initially, Tom, I don't know how you felt about it, but it felt like, okay, option A at receivers out, let's go to option B. Mm-hmm. I think it almost worked across positions, and they had this pool of money, and they had money designated for certain guys who suddenly weren't available to them, and so they were able to be a little bit more flexible and just sort of go where the market took them.
Yep. We talked about this last night as well with Ronnie Stanley, and then add Chris Godwin to the pile today. You can't force guys at the point of a bayonet to leave where they are to come to a place that has some unknowns to it. And the Patriots have plenty of unknowns. They're a team that has been rebuilding for 5 years. This is their second year in a ground zero rebuild because you have to figure after Bill, 2023 was the season in which they hit rock bottom. They spent last year trying to build a foundation. Nobody was there in free agency, really. That's why they didn't spend. They did not spend last year. They spent on Mike Onwenu. They spent on Hunter Henry. They spent on Kyle Duggar. They spent on Christian Barmore. They spent on Davon Godchaux. They actually spent their money as well as they could, or as much as they could, because you have to hit, price points to get yourself aligned. They didn't have a non-active year in free agency. They just re-signed all their own guys and poured money into them. None of them worked out. It's ironic when you look at the free agents that are going out around the league. The Patriots haven't lost a single free agent. They traded Godchaux to the Saints. That's it. Nobody wants their players. They retained Austin Hooper. But to me, it's really interesting because when you look at what they're dealing with, there are no shortcuts. Free agency is supposed to be spackle. It's not supposed to be the base layer. It's not supposed to be the drywall. You're supposed to go into free agency in spackle spots. So they're not able to get a wide receiver. Could they have gotten DK Metcalf? Yeah, probably. I don't even know if they were in on him. Didn't you report that?
I reported that they did not make Seattle an offer to trade for DK Metcalf.
No Devontae Adams as well. Probably attainable if you wanted to go bananas, but he wanted to be on the West Coast. And no Chris Godwin. Why couldn't you spend more on Chris Godwin? Well, there's a point at which you say to these guys, here, you're on a team that went to the playoffs last year, Chris. You're settled there. You've been there for years. Why don't you come up here and we'll give you $4 or $5 million a year more, $20 million over that period of time. That would be persuasive to me, who's got not $20 million at my disposal. But was it to Chris Godwin? Because he's probably not going to see 5 years of the contract or 4 years of the contract wherever he goes. So bottom line is you can't force players to come here, especially if they never hit free agency and you can't fully have them in your building. So the Stanley and Godwin stuff, that's a byproduct of the Patriots being where they are right now. At least today, when they talked about foundation building last year, they never even poured any cement. They never got guys who were foundational pieces from outside the building. Today they did with Milton Williams, Harold Landry over the weekend, Robert Spillane, the linebacker, Carlton Davis, a cornerback, Morgan Moses, a gauze pad or better right tackle, and then Kyrus Tonga, whose name I had never heard prior to today, is a 338-pound defensive tackle. Those are the guys who are in.
Yeah, and I think, the common thread through a lot of those additions, to me, is this Mike Vrabel regime staying true to what they've wanted to do. I know they care about adding the right kinds of people because I know they weren't one player away from competing for a championship. And we said this on the Sunday night pod after that busy day Sunday and a pretty busy weekend in the NFL in terms of our immediate reactions. But they care about building up their culture. They want to be smart about the types of human beings that they bring into their locker room. And start with Milton Williams because he got the big deal. Everything you hear about him out of Philadelphia, pro's pro, positive culture guy. Carlton Davis is coming from a place where culture is everything under Dan Campbell. And it feels like they have that thing going in the right direction in large part because of that culture. Robert Spillane, somebody that Josh McDaniels knows well, was a captain there in Vegas and is going to check a lot of those types of boxes for Mike Vrabel. So I think you look, Morgan Moses, let's throw him into the list because guy who is tough as all get out, Tom. I mean, he plays, you can mark him down for 900 snaps a year. Massive human being. He's now 34 years old. He played just under 900 last year, was 700 plus. He missed a few weeks, but he still started 14 games. And every year, year after year after year at right tackle, he's just out there starting games. And so there's dependability in that. There's, I think, a culture add in adding a player like that. And so that to me is the common thread as well. You still have glaring needs, a tackle and receiver, and they know it. I've heard people today talk about how, well, what do you think about them prioritizing talent on the defensive side of the ball? They're not prioritizing it. They're just trying to add good players. They would love to add offensive pieces. Love to. But the ones that are available to them that they feel like they can get and have gotten are for the most part on the defensive side. But I think that culture part of it is significant for us to bring up because this is what they wanted to do. No, they haven't checked every box in terms of all their needs on both sides of the ball, but they've brought in the right kinds of people, it looks like.
You got to fish where the fish are. And as you're talking about the culture, I wrote something today. You can check out our live blog. We're going to be doing this all week long as there's business being done. It's on NBCSportsBoston.com. These are three things that I wrote in the blog in an entry in the blog. These are three things that Mike Vrabel said in January that stuck out. One, I want to galvanize our football team. I want to galvanize this building. I want to galvanize our fan base. Two, we're going to remove entitlement from our football team. We're going to get everything that we've earned from the head coach to the position coaches all the way down to the players. We're going to earn the right to be here every single day. Three, I don't know if we're good enough to take advantage of bad football. I'm unsure. If we can just work towards taking advantage of bad football and being good enough to, when somebody makes a mistake, capitalize on it and not be the ones making the mistakes, that's a great place to start. Those three things tell you that in Mike Vrabel, in his heart of hearts, he understands how much this team is at ground zero. We have to build a culture. We have to stop the entitlement that existed with guys putting themselves first, whether it be contractually last summer, whether it be as the season wore along, whether it be second-guessing coaching decisions or schemes or other guys' effort. That's kind of what this has been about. And I don't think that anybody on this team is nailed down. You look at, for instance, the moving on from Devon Godshaw. I would look at the linebacker core, the addition of Robert Spillane, not just Harold Landry, who's an edge rusher. He's not a linebacker per se. He's an edge rusher. Outside linebacker, you want to call him that, that's fine. But at the linebacker level, the addition of Spillane at the money he's making means that, to me, either Juwan Bentley or Jelani Tavai is probably leaving. Because those are pretty good players when they're both available. Bentley being a leader, but you look at that, you look at other positions that are probably under scrutiny as well that we're hearing about on the offensive side of the ball with leaders. And as Phil and I were talking about that, he said, well, they're leaders, but where has their leadership gotten them from these guys? So this is not to say they're bad players, bad people by any stretch. Not to say DK Metcalf's a dink. But you want to be able to stand in the huddle when you're Drake May and not feel as if this guy who needs to see the ball 130 times, make 90 catches and get in the end zone 11 times isn't saying, where's mine? How come you threw it to Keyshawn Boutte?
Well, and I can tell you, Tom, they know the Patriots in their brass. Brass. I love that word. Their brass. They know how detrimental that can be to a young quarterback. And they know. They saw from afar last year what was happening with Caleb Williams. It was sort of an open secret, and I remember reporting it mid-season when the Patriots actually went out to Chicago and talking to some people in Chicago about just how difficult the year had been on Caleb Williams because he wasn't able to make those veteran receivers, especially DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, happy. He couldn't get them the ball enough, and they were making it known. And as a result, you have a player who's taken number 1 overall, should be on top of the world, should have all the confidence in the world, and his confidence is crushed. And it's probably impacting him not only on Sundays, but during the week as well. And so that's the last thing. Now, would Drake May handle it in the exact same way Caleb Williams did if he was given a player like that, whether we're talking about DK Metcalf or Devontae Adams or anybody else? And again, I don't think they're bad guys. I think the Patriots just want to be very careful about who they surround their young quarterback with so that he's not under that kind of pressure that Williams dealt with last year.
Let's go through some of these signings. Milton Williams, what's he do on your defensive line? A little thinner, a little skinnier. Where's he fit? Does he bump somebody?
Penetrating defensive tackle. And, to me, he could work great with Christian Barmore if Christian Barmore is healthy. If he's not, he gives you that interior pass rush that suddenly now you are lacking if Barmore's not on the field. But you pair those guys together, and I'm not saying Christian Barmore's Jalen Carter in Philly, but you saw Milton Williams and Jalen Carter work really well together. The bigger defensive tackle who is just incredibly strong and can get after quarterbacks, and the smaller, more penetrating, can knife through the line, one gap, quote-unquote, type of player in Milton Williams, and you can make life a living hell for opposing offenses. So that's who he is, and if they are fully healthy up front, that front's going to be a handful for interior offensive linemen, but he's super explosive. Tom, second in pressure rate among all interior defensive linemen last year. He's still just 26 years old, I believe. So you're getting this guy firmly in his prime, maybe even getting better as time goes on here.
Patriots couldn't bother anybody, and I think that the one game you guys want to refer to if you want to see how bad it was the Chargers game, 40-7, when Justin Herbert was able to just sit there with his heels on the ground and test the wind before he threw the football. So now you have a purported answer along the defensive line of Milton Williams to bring some pressure. On the edge now you have Harold Landry as well. Harold Landry is a player who Tennessee passed around the league and no one wanted him, understanding that it was going to be expensive anyway, and you were going to have to give up something for somebody who's about to be a free agent. But he gets $3 and $43.5, $15 million a year. It's one of your highest paid players now. He is a productive Josh Uche. Josh Uche had unbelievable get-off. He compiled 11 sacks a couple of years ago, and in so doing, he had 8 sacks in a 3-game stretch. I always was stunned at how fast he got off the ball. Harold Landry gets off the ball even faster. He's smaller. He lined up with Tennessee on the left edge of the defense over the right tackle. Actually, over the right tackle is a misnomer because he would often line up probably 3, 4, 5 yards outside the right shoulder of the right tackle. And he basically is a turbo pass rusher. He's Elvis Dumerville. And what he was good at is he either beats the guy around the edge, running the hoop, and then coming back upfield, or he's very good on twists inside. He also has what I think is a good motor, Phil. You see it enough on film. But is that motor something that caused Tennessee to say, you know what, it's sputtering, it's sporadically firing here?
Yeah, I have talked to people in Tennessee who felt that was the case last year, that his engine ran a little hot and cold. One person actually said it was more like cold and warm. And listen, maybe that's the product of him not loving the new coaching staff. If Mike Vrabel is going out and willing to extend and maybe in the opinions of some people overextend for a guy who is in his late 20s now, and yes, he had 19.5 sacks last 2 years, but depending on what numbers you look at, he was 81st out of 93 qualifying pass rushers last year when it came to his pass rush productivity, which is a stat that Pro Football Focus cooks up. Hits, sacks, pressures over how many opportunities you had. And he played a lot of football. I'll give him that. Very durable for somebody who's not a huge guy. I was told he played in the 230s last year. He's listed at 252. Are the Patriots going to be okay with that? I don't know. But he is a new type of edge rusher for Patriots fans to watch because, as you said, likes to line up really wide, like a wide 9 kind of alignment, and just fly up the field. you hope Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams, if you're a Patriots fan, have ways to sort of combat that if that's how he's going to play on the edge so that they're not left vulnerable other places. But he's a guy, Tom, who probably, if he's next to Milton Williams and Milton Williams is next to Christian Barmore, like, you can only double so many guys. So if he's left with a lot of one-on-ones, maybe he does end up being the kind of productive edge rusher they're hoping for by giving him the money they gave him.
It will also be an adjustment for Patriots fans who are used to the biggest tenet of the Patriots defense being set the edge and don't let a huge alleyway open for Josh Allen, for Lamar Jackson, for Justin Herbert, for you name the mobile quarterback to go tear-assing through because your defensive end went as far outside as he could to try and get an edge on his tackle. Next up, Robert Spillane. I did the linebacker overview yesterday, and I said, the Patriots can enter the season with a straight face with their group of 4 linebackers with Christian Ellis, Juwan Bentley, Jelani Tavai, and my favorite, Anthony Jennings.
Penny Jennings, as you like to call him.
Penny Jennings. So Harold Landry is a defensive lineman edge guy more than a linebacker. But why is Robert Spillane going to make $3 and $37? Who's he going to replace? What are they going to do?
It's a good question, and I wonder if, because this is going to be maybe more of a
3-4
fast and aggressive kind of defense. Well, the Patriots were really, a 3-4 the last, several years under Bill Belichick and then Gerard Mayo. They were a 3-4 structure. Very few people are obviously using like a lot of base defense.
They were amorphous, though. You know what I mean?
They were, but their body types were like Devon Godshaw, true nose tackle. Their edge setting guys were big and burly, and they're off the ball linebackers. Again, were 250-pound Jelani Tavai, 250-pound Juwan Bentley. Spillane, I don't believe, is that size, and is probably going to be more of a sideline to sideline, fly around and chase the football kind of player. And so, is there a fit there for Bentley and Tavai if that position is going to be expected to, as opposed to light up guards one-on-one in the run game, cover more ground in the run and the pass games? Under Bill Belichick, it was like get downhill and kill people at the line of scrimmage. That's what they wanted their off-the-ball linebackers to do. And maybe it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not saying Robert Spillane can't do that, but he's probably a little bit different body type than the 2 guys that have been playing there the last couple of years.
I mean, you have compliments if you stick with all the guys you have, because Marty Mapu can come flying up there and play. Marte Mapu can come up there and play in the box too, as can Peppers. But again, I'm really interested to see what direction the Patriots go with some of their veteran players as we look at the influx of new blood on the defense and the history they have with Vrabel and or McDaniels. And you look at Peppers, Bentley, Tavai, Godshaw's out the door. Are they looking to change the face and the attitude of the defense under Terrell Williams? Morgan Moses.
Robert Spillane, really quickly. Sorry, 6'1", 229. So very different.
It's like your size.
Little lighter.
You might be bigger.
No, I don't think I'm at 229 yet. We're trending in the wrong direction, though.
Bench Bros. Morgan Moses, 3 and 24. You got an $8 million a year tackle out there. Right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Manning right tackle last year was a collection of your DeMontre Jacobs and who else was out there?
I mean, he actually took most of the work out there.
Mike Jordan?
No, Michael Jordan was playing guard when he was out there. Boy, let's go back through. I mean, Caden Wallace saw a little time at the end of the year at right tackle, and he's still around, and he was a right tackle in college.
He's a third-round pick?
They should give him an opportunity at least to see if he can play. You don't want to just flush that down the drain, but I really like this because he's just so – again, I'll mention the snap counts, but he's just so dependable. He's played fewer than 900 snaps just once since 2015, which was his first season as a full-time starter. He's exceeded 1,000 snaps in 4 different seasons. So, he started 158 out of a possible 164 games. Tom, this guy is Mr. Dependability. Now, he's older, so maybe that stops, and maybe that stops in a short period of time here. But I just like the fact that you have somebody that you feel like you can look at and say, okay, that's settled, at least for now. We can, we still want to develop players. Caden Wallace, you're on the clock. Like, we need to get you ready too, because this guy's not going to play forever. But at least you have it shored up, it feels like, for week 1 of 2025.
The irony, of course, is that you bring in Moses to stop the parting of the seas. All right, Carlton Davis. 3 years, $60 million for the second-best cornerback on the team. Would he be here if they had gotten Ronnie Stanley? Would he be here if they had gotten Chris Godwin? Or was that money burning a hole in their pocket?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. But I don't mind them spending at that position because it is one of the quote-unquote premium positions in my mind. Now, it might be sort of last on the list behind quarterback, tackle, pass rusher, receiver. So is it maybe the 5th most important position on the field? But it is important.
You're going to have a good rush. You have to have guys who can cover. They already have guys who can cover. They're not slouches on the back end. But now they can be a pain in the ass. Look, if you're an offensive coordinator, you actually have to think twice now. And not to slight Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, but you have a nicer complement of styles back there. Last year, you were always looking at that secondary corner spot, and it's Marco Wilson or Alex Austin who would have good plays because they're professional players, but then they get lit up too. And it's not Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones out there, wonderful athletes who are physically just not equipped to go against a treetop receiver.
Yeah.
Carlton Davis isn't like 6'9", but...
Oh, he's 6'1", though,
Yes.
and long arms. And so I like that part of this signing is that this is real size in a league now where just about every team, Tom, they've got a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 1A, and they're both physical freaks. Not a ton of receiving cores that are just loaded with little water bugs running around here. And so it felt like on a weekly basis, yes, you knew Christian Gonzalez had his matchup covered, but then on the other side of the field, it was sort of like, how are we going to handle this? That's how it felt. And now I think you can feel a lot more comfortable with what they have on the outside in both of these guys. And again, I just like his demeanor, his attitude. He's a veteran guy, and so, is he closer to the end than the beginning? I mean, he spent 6 years in Tampa before last year in Detroit, so now he's in his 8th season. These guys, don't play forever, especially a position like that one where makeup speed and straight line speed and quickness are so critical. But I like that he's a physical, long-armed guy. He could probably get right in your face at the line of scrimmage, and you could play press man all you want. And if they're doing their job on the outside, that gives Milton Williams and whoever else they have up front more time to get to the quarterback.
And when you look at the staples, highly paid or soon-to-be highly paid staples on the back end of their defense, you have Kyle Duggar at safety. Injured last year, tried to play through it. I consider him a good leader. Kind of a no BS guy, and I would feel comfortable with the Patriots saying he's going to be better again. So you got Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez, Kyle Duggar, Peppers. The whole situation leaves a dent because regardless of whether it was dismissed, there was cocaine involved. I mean, it's hard to get your head around that and say, yeah, it's one of our guys. And I thought he's been the team MVP in 2022 and 2023. I thought he was their best and most productive and reliable player. But you have 5 good guys and then throw in Jonathan Jones and Marcus Jones, you got a stable of guys who can play at the back end of the defense. Let's hit this, though. No wide receivers have emerged yet. Right now, you're still status quo. It's Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, Kayshon Boutte,
Pop Douglas.
Javon Baker, and your best player is Pop Douglas, who I almost overlooked.
Well, he's short, so.
Good point by you. Jacoby Myers, Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp.
Sure.
Cooper Kupp.
Options. I think both should be in play for them.
Which is not going to drastically change your football team.
No, it's not, but it's going to make you more professional and a little bit more dependable at one of the most important positions on the field. And it should give you less stress going into draft weekend, right? I think you're still looking for a 1. There's no question. And those guys that we just mentioned are not 1s, even Cooper Kupp at this stage of his career. But it just slots everybody in a more appropriate spot on the depth chart. And you could still say we're leaving that number 1 slot open. And maybe it's Jaden Higgins in the draft in the 2nd round out of Iowa State because he's 6'4" and 215 pounds, and he's a freaky athlete, and he's got great hands. I love him. I had him mocked to the Patriots at 38 overall in my most recent mock draft. Maybe it's Travis Hunter. There's a chance that he slides to you at number 4 overall, and he's your future number 1 receiver. But, you just need professionals in the room, Tom, so you're not depending on, as much as he had a better year last year than he's had previously, Kayshon Boutte to be like a go-to guy in critical situations. You'd feel much better about it
You'd love
if
him
it
to
were
be your
Jacoby
three.
Myers.
I like Kayshon Boutte's game.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be. I don't think he's a bad guy either, but I think he's a little immature at times, as evidenced by some of the things that he would say.
Still younger than both Jalen Polk and Javon Baker.
I like him. Great body control, great hands, a little more mouthy than you're looking for.
Hey,
but
not
I think
for
he's
our
funny.
purposes. We love that.
DeAndre Hopkins, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, all are free agents. Phil, would you entertain any of them for the New England Patriots?
Did you mention DeAndre Hopkins?
I did.
Okay. He would be the one that I would consider. And even then, I'm a little tentative. Just
let
because
him show up on Sundays.
Just because of the age. But
Just keep him out of the room. Just show up on Sundays.
yeah,
We're not going to have guys
I love
do it your
that,
way.
though. And
I'm
the
kidding.
Patriots shouldn't want that either.
I
But
joke.
he did have a 1,000-yard receiving season a couple years ago under Mike Vrabel at Tennessee. So if they think he can still play and his game just
And who
ages
was
well,
throwing to him that year?
because he's not a speed guy anyway.
Was that a Tannehill Levis year?
Might have been. We'd have to go back.
Yeah.
Check the
sorry,
tape.
Sorry to put you.
Yeah,
on this.
no, that's okay. He would be the one I would consider. I think Amari Cooper is really physically done. And again, I think DeAndre Hopkins, his game isn't predicated on speed, so you don't worry about that as much maybe with him. And Diggs, again, first of all, when's he going to be healthy? You might not be getting him until midseason. And secondly, when he is out there, is he one of these guys? And listen, there are a lot of receivers that are wired this way, and I don't begrudge them at all. It's part of what you need to be a good receiver for a lot of people. But is he one of these guys that we were talking about earlier where if he doesn't get the ball for 2 quarters, he's in the offensive huddle looking at Drake May a little sideways when you're not looking for that? So Hopkins to me, but I would still prefer Kupp and or Myers. And I think the Patriots, I think the question with Myers is he available, Tom? I mean, the Raiders just signed Geno Smith. It looks like they're trying to, their coach is 73 years old or whatever. Like they're trying to win right now. Are you trading Jacoby Myers if they think he's a solid number 2?
Well,
I don't know.
And that's what's interesting. Are they looking at Aiden O'Connell and saying, no, not doing this? Or are they looking at Geno as being, since they moved on from Gardner Minshew, a souped-up Gardner Minshew? I would have to know what the numbers are for Geno to be
I think
able
they
to make
just gave him a real
proclamation.
deal. They just paid him real money.
Speaking of which, Sam Darnold's going to the Seahawks and Justin Fields is going to the Jets. We're going to wrap it up on those 2 notes, but Justin Fields to the Jets. Patriots, are they in trouble with this move for the Jets? Are the Jets resurgent suddenly?
No, but this is good news because you want as many quarterback-needy teams as possible in the draft shoring up the quarterback position now, and you want those teams ahead of you doing the opposite, meaning you want to go into the draft with the Titans still needing a quarterback, the Browns still needing a quarterback, and the Giants still needing a quarterback. As long as whether it's Justin Fields or Aaron Rodgers or Sam Darnold or Geno Smith, like let every other team figure out their quarterback position. You hope if you're the Patriots that those teams 1 through 3 do not, because that gives you a greater chance of having an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter fall to you at 4.
Last point, we told you guys a million times, don't get your hopes up for free agency. Guys don't get to free agency. Have the Patriots exceeded your expectations? Because my expectations, which were low, were exceeded on Tamper Monday.
They did exceed my expectations in terms of overall dollars.
I was very cynical.
Dollars spent. I thought I know how badly they were wanting Chris Godwin, and I thought they might be able to make that kind of splash move. But the fact that they got Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, they've added a bunch of starters, Tom. So they needed to do it. And so I think, yes, to answer your question, they did exceed my expectations today. I was not expecting them to be the team that spent the most money in free agency on day 1 of legal tampering period, and I believe they are number 1 right now.
Woo!
So, did they win the offseason? Is that how that works?
But Felger will tell you, don't get your hopes up. They're going to extract it from you later on.
And I was being facetious. Winning the offseason is always a stupid thing that we do every year. No matter.
Don't get your. This isn't a splurge. It's a Patriot splurge. All right.
Okay, let's
See
go.
you guys.
We got a TV
We got
show.
TV. Bye.
Bye.